Thank you so much, and good morning to everyone. To those who we haven't had yet the chance to meet, my name is Silla Sepp. I serve as the head of urban data ecosystems at the Finnish Center for Smart Cities in Tallinn University of Technology, and Taltech is then leading also the trainings on governance perspectives as well as legal. So we will have the chance to meet not only today, but also in the coming trainings regarding governance. I'll give you a quick overview of what is in the plans for today, and then I'll also introduce my colleague Ralf Martin, who will also be part of the training here today. Last time we met in March when there was the introduction training for the data space blueprint and data space generally. I had a short presentation about governance there, and since then I'm sure you've had several meetings with the mentors, started working on the self-assessment and pilot profiles, etc. So it's good that you already have some ideas about both the technical and non-technical sides of your pilot implementation. Today, our primary focus is on actually thinking about really the bigger purpose and objectives regarding your data spaces, as well as the European data space for smart communities, and thinking through also the various roles and responsibilities of various stakeholders within the data space in order to really then ensure that the values and principles that have been set out for data spaces regarding level playing field, data sovereignty, etc., would be really respected. There's the upcoming trainings also on actually creating win-win solutions and for all stakeholders. That would be combined with the business training because I think and we think that governance and business aspects are so interrelated. So it's not worth to always break them into different parts, but we would combine those. Probably you haven't received a formal invitation at the moment, but I can give you already a heads up that we would be planning for an on-site meeting with all of the pilots in the fall to really have the chance for dedicated workshops with you and training sessions regarding that. So stay tuned for more information about those. After that, there's also the training on regulatory aspects and contracts. So we will make some references to contractual terms and aspects today, but we will have a chance to go much more in detail to those in the fall. And final thing is that while all of you as pilots are working on specific use cases on your local and regional data spaces as set out for the European data space for smart communities, in the end, we want to also federate all of those different pilots, of course. So we need to start thinking about also the governance aspects for that, and what would that entail for all of you. So that will also come up in the future. But for today, I'll give over the word right away to my colleague Ralf Martin Soe from Finnish Center for Smart Cities, who will do an introduction to the governance scheme and also talk a little bit more broader about the major, let's say, priorities within the governance framework for data spaces. We will then have an interactive part to go a little bit more in detail to how do you actually put some of those expectations into practice. Then I'll continue with a presentation about roles and responsibilities, have again a chance to do a bit of group work, and then we'll close by 11 o'clock. So without any further ado, I'll give over the word to Ralf Martin, and he can also share a bit about himself. Thank you.
So logisticals first things first. So can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Silla, for the intro. So I'm Ralf Martin Soe, digital governance experts, and I'm greeting you from a bit cold, chilly, and rainy Tallinn. And as said, I'm a colleague of Silla, being director of Finance Center for Smart Cities and also assistant professor of Smart Cities Studies at Tallinn University of Technologies. I've studied innovation and governance in Maastricht University in the Netherlands, and I have also PhD in technology governance from Tallinn University of Technology. And I have been digital governance fellow at United Nations University and at Stanford University. Plus, I have also been advisor to the Minister of ICT in Estonia. So this is the background from my side, and maybe I don't know how familiar you are. I know that many of you work for cities. Some come from a technical side, some come from a policy side. There's like a business side involved as well. And I don't know how familiar you are with the concept of governance as such. So maybe I don't want to go into a lecturing mode on what it is and what we mean by that, but just maybe I'll just ask one question, but what is the difference between government and governance, which is maybe key thing for you to understand. And then the answer is quite simple, at least if we give it in a way that government is just one actor in a broader process called governance. So governance is steering society and trying to solve bigger challenges that many of your pilots actually deal with, and maybe that's also like something you have been already been dealt with, that pilots like data space ones are not that straightforward, like in terms of management, that you just kickstart it and then you have like the team running it, but usually this goes across different departments, across different cities, across country borders, and so on. And this is where this governance concept comes into the play. And also, like in terms of, as mentioned, that many of you work for the cities, and in terms of digital transformation, city government is just one player among other levels of governance. So we have central government, we have EU funding some activities like this. We have also regional government and so on. And then, in addition to government as such on different levels, we have also industry, community, people, and so on. And in terms of data and digital solutions, local governments, cities, municipalities own and have access only to a small proportion of data in the city as a place. So this is where, like I have introduced here, the city as a place concept. The same is from economical perspective, that all the bigger cities in terms of volume of capital, they have only a small fraction of resources, financial resources that are available in the city as a place. In the Tallinn, it's something approximately 1 billion to 20. In Paris, it's something 20 billion to 1 trillion, meaning that in the case of Paris, the budget of Paris as a local authority is 20 billion, but the GDP of Paris as a place, including the people and companies and other levels of government and so on, is 1 trillion, meaning that city is just a one player there, and this is exactly the case in terms of data as well. Otherwise, we could say that cities as a place have very rich data. In some cases, in the mobility and energy, that built environment that your pilots are dealing with, we can say that cities even have cities as a place have close to perfect data. because if you think about every person collecting data themselves with their gadgets, smartphones, if you think about different transport vehicles, public transport providers, cars, and all the cameras, vehicles, mobile positioning data, 5G data, and so on, then there's a very rich data available in every city as a place on most of our daily movements, but nobody has access to that. Nobody, because this is fragmented and and that has to be like that as well. So this is not the goal that all the data must be available, but it just shows that there's a lot of data, but the cities usually don't owe those data as local government administrators as such. The same is with energy data in terms of electricity meters and different devices data, IoT data, heat pumps, and so on. My personal heat pump in Tallinn is not giving any data to city of Tallinn. It's clear. My Garmin device also doesn't give any data to city of Tallinn, and so on. There are some collaboration agreements as well with like bigger companies like Google and Garmin and so on. So to some extent they give data to some cities, but this is already the governance framework and how we agree. Here we go to this main point of why multi-stakeholder governance scheme. And I'm just a reader here. Later I will put the preparatory file into the chat as well. But the logic is that this is supposed to help you and guide you in doing your activities, and then if you take this multi-stakeholder governance scheme, you can see that a lot of focus is on the local data ecosystems that foster trust. So trust is a keyword here. And it is also a basis to support harmonization of data ecosystem into a federated European data space for smart communities. There are several objectives, and then roles will be discussed later by Sille as well. But then maybe one thing for you to understand and then maybe to plan into activities as well is that data exchange is based on trust, both internally but even more externally, and this is both towards our partners and and towards technology as a partner as such as well. And then like practically federation is mainly a governance challenge, not technology challenge, because we know that we have close to perfect information on mobility as mentioned. And then there's only like a small fraction that city as a legal entity has access to, and then this is protected as well through data protection laws and business interest as well. And what is the role of data governance in data space? Maybe one thing to point out as a priority is that for any distributed system dealing with secure data exchange, you need governance framework, and mainly you need to define who and how can have access to data. If you solve those two things, you can make everything, all the data flowing freely from each point from each organization to another one, but conceptually it is not that straightforward and not that yeah, it is not that straightforward. what is the role of governance in this data space for smart cities and communities blueprint. Here it's under the governance scheme, and it's related to analysis of business models and legal frameworks. So if you have any further interest into those concepts that I'm introducing, they are all explained in this multi-stakeholder governance scheme that we will share as well, and you can read into that. And that also introduces this local city data ecosystem, which is like on the central place in this preparatory multi-stakeholder governance scheme as well. And this is just one example from open data perspective that your pilots mainly seem to deal with, but how externally shared data and companies, citizen generate data could be made open for other applications. And data space for open data deals with how secure data can be aggregated and shared in agreed format, or yeah, data space deals also with secure data conceptually, although most of the pilots are focused on the open data side. And then, as mentioned, there are several legal frameworks as well that we do not open, but there is like a promising. There are nice promises that people and residents could have better access to data gathered by technology companies, and let's hope that this legal framework supports it. As soon as I myself get easier access to data from my smart watch Garmin application, when I can see that this works, because in my case, probably Garmin has the best and most accurate information of my mobility during the last 10 years of running, cycling, walking, swimming, better than myself and better than my wife. The only way to have that access to the data is through the Garmin environment. And sometimes it's down as well once a year and so on. So I would be interested in having that access to data as well. Maybe through some legal process it is possible, but as a single person, I'm not interested in that. And then, like the legal framework and legal side is important to understand that sometimes it's also how different regulations are interpreted, not only and not always created. But 10 years ago, when we started with the first ever autonomous mobility pilot in Tallinn, we argued with the government of Estonia that there's no need to change any regulation because there's a Vienna Convention that supports it. And gives like the main framework for mobility in general and driving vehicles specifically. But it took like government office 1-2 years, kind of prime minister initiated level roundtables to confirm that this is the case. And today, thanks to that, Estonia is like a very live and vivid testbed for autonomous mobility applications. So if you visit it, you can see it in daily lives. When the food is delivered with those robot shuttles, and they are pretty much everywhere. But there needs to be like a discussion on that as well. And then importance of data governance. I don't want to go too much into the specifics of that, but data governance then is like a framework how data is collected, shared, and used. And then if you talk about collaborative data ecosystems that your pilots actually are dealing with, but with this management of data across sectors and borders. And strategy is around involving various stakeholders, breaking down data silos, working on the semantic compatibility, and with a goal of a different data space that can be integrated and used effectively. And yeah, like interoperability helps to unleash full potential of data. So I will also give you one example from Estonia, and then introduced one concept where we did quite broad survey with cities as well. So in Estonia, all local government databases are connected with each other via secure transport exchange layer, which is called X-Road. And the key of this concept is that it defines legally who and how can have access to most sensitive data, including data on your health files, including police data. Yeah, like the most secure data is exchanged via public internet as well. And then even though it is very often assumed that this is the technological innovation, but it is not. There are like tens, if not hundreds, enterprise service buses that can facilitate something like that. But it is mainly governance innovation because it is mandated. Local governments initially were not interested in integrating all the data with X-Road. What we have, every single database must give out data through this X-Road transport layer. And it is supported by legal frameworks as well. The positive side of X-Road is that it is technology neutral. Every IT company, bigger one, says that they have developed X-Road, and which is true because it has been done in collaborative way, and everybody has been part of that, and it allows transferring data from one system to another one and one database to another one. And it is distributed, meaning that there's no single master database collected together, but there are thousands of databases that just exchange information with each other. And it is also yeah, like it is considered to be flexible, but maybe it is not super flexible because yeah. The challenge with Estonia has been that it's too small country, and our and we have a lot of activities outside that we would like to involve data exchange as well, including the pilots like you are doing and so on. And we have understood that there's a huge challenge of trust and legal frameworks if we wanted to federate it, and it has not been effectively federated on the large scale, even not between neighboring countries. On a small scale, it is like, but the question comes to misaccess to sensitive data.
Sorry, Ralph, we can hear you.
Yeah, it seems we lost your connection.
Okay, am I back now?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear you.
you're back.
Okay, sorry. I hope that was only like something like 30 seconds. Sorry, my battery died. But anyway, we are coming to end of this session. Why I introduced the X road is that it's a good governance example, and if you could federate it, or if you could build data space around smart communities in the same way that there's a real-time access to data spaces across different municipalities. I think that would be like a really perfect outcome of your work, of our work as well. And I'll skip that one, but just mention that as a point what I've been trying to make as well is that we did one survey with hundreds of cities with UN Habitat. Maybe some of you participated there as well, and it is too often assumed that the data governance smarts with technology, this red pillar here, ignoring strategy and collaborative ecosystems part. In the top-down simple solutions, like implementing new team solutions, Microsoft Office solutions, this works like that as well. But in the case of complex solutions that your projects are dealing with, or in the case of climate challenges in the city as a place framework, it doesn't work like that. And you need and strategy and collaborative ecosystems are becoming more important. And in terms of strategy, we also talk about culture, internal capabilities, public procurement, in terms of collaborative ecosystems, how our partners are involved. And with that, I think we can move to group work park. So we want you to start working.
Before we go into that, just to ask if there's any questions from the audience to Ralph. I think we can take a few minutes for this. I haven't seen any from the chat, but if you do have a question, to raise your hand and share it. Don't see any hands at this moment. I guess we can then come back to those at the end of the session if there will be questions. If you don't mind, I'll take over the screen sharing, as I will also have then some of the practical questions to the audience. Regarding the group work, the main objective for this is that while there is the governance principles are set out to really guide you generally, but in the end, governance also is very much dependent on the actual context, which is lived out in your own cities, in your pilot sites, within the organizations that you're working at, and hence what is important is also that we actually start to drill down what those principles actually mean in practice for you. So within the multi-stakeholder governance scheme, you will actually find, sorry, I hope that you don't see this whole banner, otherwise it would be really annoying to not see the slides. The 7 principles in total, but we've prioritized 3 of them that you see here on the right. The first one, that the data space should level the playing field between the different stakeholders involved, that the governance and infrastructure of the European data space for smart communities should really abide by the principles of technological and data sovereignty. And finally, also that, of course, the sharing and reusing the data is not for an end of itself, but actually it should really create tangible tangible value, both societal value as well as, why not, financial or monetary value to the various But I'll then continue with the presentation also on the aspect of roles and responsibilities. And I'll start by the aspect or a bit of a return to the previous training on the introduction to the blueprint, and particular to the governance aspect, where we talked about what actually governance means. Ralph Martin also went about or described this a little bit more in detail. But in the end, the question is that when we're focusing on the data space governance and setting up the governance framework, in order to actually simplify this, you could think this through in the context of rules of the game for our existence in a way. And why to really bother with this? Because in some sense, there's a lot of open questions already with more tangible aspects, like what are the technical building blocks to actually make it work? Because in the end, you need that infrastructure to facilitate that data exchange and actually to reuse it. And some of those open, perhaps fluffy questions about how do we actually create the value and how to ensure level playing field, perhaps can sometimes fall into the latter parts of the to-do list. So the main thing actually around governance frameworks, of course, is that we use that to actually determine how the various stakeholders can really bring value as well as create value. It has connections to the business models of each individual organization, as well as the business model for the use case of that you're developing within the data space, as well as the data space itself. The rules of the game is important to actually manage risks, because if you have selected few organizations and you know the people, you've had a lot of discussions, perhaps you're aligned with your thinking, but as soon as people change, motivations change, new actors come in, you need to also have some clauses in place to actually ensure that the risk wouldn't realize. And of course, also set some processes for actually providing oversight for the actions, because you at some point want to scale those activities and you don't have the effort to look through all of these in detail on a day-to-day basis. So when going forward then to the aspect of the rules of the game, we're thinking this in the context of the governance framework, which is defined in the words of the Data Spaces Support Center as the structured set of principles, processes, standards, protocols, rules, and practices to really actually guide how the data space itself functions, how it operates in practice, as well as it defines the functionalities and the roles and the relationships between those roles within the data space. So in that context, it's really the description of how do you envision this to work, and of course taking into account again the aspects that you wouldn't the scenarios that you wouldn't want to be realized. But in the context of the governance framework, it's important to consider that it's not only a set of documents, but it's also the ongoing practices, the processes, the relationships that you already have in place with your partners within the local ecosystem. And it also comes in the context of previously done vendor relationships, all of the different practices that you already have experience with within your pilot sites. Now, going forward from this governance framework, certain parts of it needs to be documented and also legally binding, because if things go wrong, you need to have some basis what to also use in order to negotiate. So the contractual framework, in the words of the Data Spaces Support Center, again, is the legally binding agreements that regulates the relationships between the data space participants and the data space itself. the transactions between the data space participants, and the provision of services within the context of a single data space. And here it's important to consider those three different parts. So again, outlining those in detail. The first part, the institutional agreements that actually give a legal basis for the existence of that data space. It could be a different kind of founding agreement on a high level with high level kind of principles for and the purpose description. But it also could set some general terms and conditions for the rules that each of the participants need to follow. Then the second part is on the data sharing agreements, which is not binding to all of the participants within a data space, but only to the participants that participate in the actual data sharing. And that would need to be then considered between the data users and the data providers. And here, one of the examples how this could actually be manifested in practice is a data product contract, where you describe what is the actual asset, what are the actual ways how it can be used, and how that perhaps that monitoring also can take place. And the third type of service, agreements that are, let's say, part of the contractual framework are the service agreements, which then can be broken down again, the agreements that are related to the actual service related to the data and the provisioning of the data exchange, either, for example, the usage of intermediation services, or the service agreements for any kind of enabling services for the actual technical deployment or implementation of the data space. So, for example, the provision of the technologies within the data space. So this is a very high level and quick overview of the different types of contracts that might need to be in place. We'll go much more in detail into those in the legal training, but it's important to start thinking about already what would you need to note down some of the rules of the game. Sorry. At the same time, what I want to also outline is that a lot of that doesn't come from out of the blue. You already have many of those agreements. Within the pilot context, you have the consortium agreement. Let's consider that what really could be extended with additional aspects added to those already existing contracts, so that we don't overcomplicate things. But of course, certain aspects might need a dedicated new contract. So again, a question to you, let's do that analysis, what actually needs to be created for your particular context. And finally, again, we need to consider this in evolution, and not overcomplicate and overregulate things in the very early stages, when you might still explore certain business models for the day use cases. You might still explore the motivations for different actors to participate in the data space. So you might not want to regulate the ways how the data actually could be even used. So just taking into account the different types of implementation stages and maturity stages of the pilot, what do you need now in order to ensure that you can be sure that nothing goes wrong at this stage, but also not overcomplicating things too soon? The final maybe comment here and recommendation is just that when you're putting down the agreements and then start agreeing on certain contracts and clauses, is that think about legal interoperability as well, and scaling your activities in the future, because as soon as you want to start adding new participants and new use cases to the data space, you don't want to have only bilateral agreements with each of the actors. So how would you actually need to set those agreements now, so that you can really extend those also in the future to others, which would then let's say interoperate also with the legal terms set by others. And this is of course especially important in the context of federation. Moving forward then, I want to go to the aspect of really the roles and responsibilities. The core focus of this presentation is that when Ralf Martin also described the different ecosystems within municipalities and well, smart cities and communities, is that we can think about these in terms of the actual actors who provide certain services, who want to use certain data for either traffic management or energy efficiency or so forth. But at the same time, we can think about those actors also in terms of the roles they carry within that data space. So the same actor, the same organization can both be a data user as well as a data provider, and maybe they don't even exchange or use any of the data, but they perhaps support or facilitate some of that, or help to govern that data space use case. So in that context, the organization and the roles they carry is really important to define, because it is associated with both the costs the costs associated with the provision of those functions, as well as what kind of value could be drawn back or captured back to that organization by carrying out that function. And so considering those aspects is important. The preparatory action of the European Data Space for Smart Communities defined also certain categories of roles within the Multi-Stakeholder Governance Scheme. And the first category is all kinds of participatory roles, roles involving really data transactions, the data holder, data provider, data user, and use case participants. Then the second category was roles associated with the facilitation of those data exchange and enabling the functioning of the data space. And that is broken down into data intermediaries and enabling services, as well as personal data intermediaries. And what is important to consider here is that this is a very much a landscape that is in flux. There's all kinds of different ways of intermediating, and especially when we consider the Data Governance Act from the Commission, is that if it's let's say abides to the functions of the DGA intermediary, it also has some responsibilities or clauses that it would need to fulfill. So it's important to consider again what type of role and function it actually carries within your data exchange. And the final category of the roles within the DS4SSCC is the governing roles, which then relate to the development, implementation, enforcement, and facilitation of those rules of engagement and governance. So different kind of governance bodies, orchestrator, community support bodies, etc. And what is important again to mention is that while this particular multi-stakeholder governance scheme outlined those three types, there's also other ways of actually defining those roles and responsibilities associated with that. So if you're, for example, looking at the DSSC blueprint, you might find also additional roles there. But in the end, well, what we need to also consider is the actual terminology used within regulations, because that would be legally binding. And you can use other terms, but you need to make those associations or connections then to the legal terms as well. I won't go into too much detail at the moment to the specific responsibilities per role, but I want to just give you a hint if you haven't yet found that out, that there's a specific outline of those responsibilities in the Multi-Stakeholder Governance Scheme. I recommend you to study those and also match these with your own context. And if you see any kind of friction that actually this doesn't really suit us, that's also important information for us, because it helps you also evolve the blueprint in the future. So let's continue having that discussion also in the coming weeks and months once you start nailing this down. What Bart mentioned beforehand about the aspects of, for example, citizens having a role in the governance bodies actually alludes to the question about who decides what and how are the rights and responsibilities let's say, rights even more protected in the context of data spaces. And this is important because, again, when we go back to the high-level principles about level playing field, data sovereignty, having trust towards the ecosystem, having also some level of control, having the potential to protect your business interest and also capture that value, ultimately, it goes back to the aspect of the power to decide something or protect your rights. So in that context, I want to bring a version of or a topic for discussion, which is very much a discussion, ongoing discussion also within the larger ecosystem of data spaces. This was particularly discussed a couple of months ago within the governance thematic group of the DSSC. It's not a specific guideline or guidance from the DSSC, but I found it really useful to use for also discuss this together with you. So in the context of the data space, there are certain actors who are really the members of the data space who can change rules and actually decide on things. There are certain aspects of that participants of the data space need to abide to, specifically if, when thinking about data usage and provision of the data. But also there's aspects of the rights of certain actors and stakeholders within the larger ecosystems who actually are the beneficiaries of the data space. And here we could think about also the citizens themselves, because most probably individual citizens would not have the capacity or even interest to have a very active relationship with the data space itself. They are primarily using the services and interacting with the data space through that. So in that context of your pilots, let's consider that are the consortium members of your individual pilots actually the members who are making those decisions? Are the stakeholders that you would want to engage within your pilot implementation as the participants who have certain rights and responsibilities regarding the usage of the data as well as providing data, and again as beneficiaries of your services, could those be considered as the larger group of stakeholders whose rights also should be considered? So this is again only as a question and topic for discussion. It doesn't aim to be a somehow prescriptive to you, but do take that into consideration when you're also deciding on who takes decisions within your data spaces. What I want to mention is that the preparatory action, again, within the multi-stakeholder governance scheme, defined the different types of actors within the context of those roles. So you'll find here on the left the participatory roles, on the right the governing roles, and then the different types of stakeholders, both from public, private, and community organizations, and how would they have the relationships to those roles. And what is defined by the multi-stakeholder governance scheme is that all participatory roles actually should be represented within the governance bodies. So this is actually in line with also, again, what Bart mentioned in the context of Citizen City, is that also perhaps citizens should have somehow representation within the governance bodies. This is in the context of the larger European data space for smart communities, but do think this is also true in your own pilot context. I do need to start wrapping up. So the last parts that I wanted to just mention here is the specific responsibilities that are outlined in the governance scheme for the participants of the European data space for smart communities. I won't go too in detail to each of those, but I do want to highlight here the second point, which is the aspect of signing and complying with the constitutive agreements and membership agreements of the European data space for smart communities. And to be completely frank and open with you, this is very much to be confirmed. to what extent this particular project and the consortium members or consortium of the DS for the deployment action of the European Data Space for Smart Communities will provide those agreements to you. That's why I alluded to the workshops and sessions for the fall, where we want to workshop together with you on the governance aspect for the federation, because those constitutive agreements should also take into consideration your context, your motivations, your business rationales, etc. So I think this is very much still up to to define and agree on what those agreements would actually be. So the last thing here is the familiar data cooperation canvas that you've probably already started working out in your context. But I've highlighted here also the aspect that while there's 3 top pillars here about the why, the purpose, the organizational principles and the technical, when we actually think about governance and governance framework, it's not only non-technical. Governance framework has very strong interconnections also to the technical aspects of what data is actually exchanged, what rules and policies should actually be defined in relation of that data. How do you actually ensure interoperability on all of the different levels, on semantics, on legal, on organization, as well as technical interoperability? What are the technical concepts actually that you will take into consideration? And of course, then the more, let's say, usual governance aspects of the business case, of the governance model, of the key partners, etc. So this canvas is useful to not forget about the different sides that are relevant actually to defining also those policies and rules for your governance.